Hi everyone. So today we're going to continue to review interior and exterior lighting. 'Tis the season, it's fall. So I picked up a bunch of gourds. I really like those decorative gourds that they have at Trader Joe's. And a lot of times in this time of year, I actually do some quick studies. I like the shape, the variety of color. You can get some of those light, kind of creamy pumpkin whites, oranges, greens, things like that. So I went ahead and picked them up, plop them in the windowsill, and I'm gonna walk you through that physical lighting situation. When I do the demo, I'm actually still gonna paint from a photo that I took of these gourds, just so you get the overhead view to see what that looks like. But I do wanna spend some time talking about setup and just kind of talking about walking through the space and really talking about lighting, okay? Because there is a difference from the actual space versus the photo. Okay, so that's the next segment. I'm just gonna show you that setup and talk about the interior lighting situation. Then I'll move to the painting desk. I will be using oils today, and I'll also be painting on panel. I'm not gonna be using an underpainting, I'll just use a direct painting and mixing method. So direct painting versus indirect. Indirect, you usually have an underpainting. Direct, you just kind of mix the colors as you go. Okay, see you in a bit. So let's talk about gourds. You can see I put them in the windowsill here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna walk back and I'm gonna show you, put my finger here. You can see my finger in the camera. And you can see on this white wall how dark it's become versus the windowsill. Again, we don't have a difference between, this is all the same white paint, but you can see how the lighting is really infecting that there's at least a 4-shade difference between the windowsill and the wall. Why that's relevant is because that's how that's affecting the gourds, okay? So these are very backlit and very dark in comparison to what's happening here with the white of the windowsill. The other thing is that you notice that the outside, although there are dark colors out there, is pretty light. See, I have this shiny Halloween decorations going on there. That's bringing some glow. It's a space lab. But this back here, even though it's a very dark fence, is a good amount lighter even than the dark wall inside. Okay, so I'm gonna pull back on that. One of the things that you need to do is so I'm gonna make that windowsill pretty light, but I also do need to lighten up that exterior a little bit more than I see it, so I get the feeling of interior and exterior lighting. One of the things is that you can't really be that literal about it. Let me turn the camera around and explain that one more time. So what do I mean by that? Well, I mean that we can't, if we are too literal about seeing that dark fence out there, you're not taking that artistic liberty to show the contrast of the light hitting the outside. Sometimes you do have to take it a couple shades lighter just so you get that sense of space. It's the same as adding atmospheric perspective or distance, making that blue of the horizon lighter. Like for example, if you're looking out into a landscape, you want to make everything in the background a little bluer and lighter to create depth, even though you might see contrast or you might see a little gray on the horizon, okay? So you're gonna see when I'm working on the actual piece that I'm taking it a couple of shades lighter from what I actually observed, which is why I took you on the walkthrough to see what I saw, okay? So you can see where those artistic liberties are made. Okay, so before I get started on the time lapse, I'm going to talk a little bit about materials. Again, there's a whole bunch of different things going on here, but I'll go over my composition, I'll go over what paint. I'm going to use kind of a limited palette, and then materials as well, like surfaces, okay? So what I have here, let's talk about what I'm actually painting on. I'm painting on panel, and when you go to a store and buy a panel, they're gonna look like this. A lot of times they're unprimed. So what you need to do is also grab yourself some gesso, and you can do a few coats in sand, and then you have this you can see it's a very slick and smooth surface. It's actually really kind of nice for washes. It's also really good for the palette knife too, which I'll do a little palette knife painting on here today for fun, just to kind of show you, how it adds texture, just kind of, gives like a feeling to the piece. Over here, again, is a panel that I just made quickly. I just added some, like what are they, 1x4, something like that to the back. just glue them on with wood glue. I bought Masonite, or this is MDF, I believe. Bought that at the store, and then I just back them so that gives it kind of structure. Ideally, if you have a saw, you can kind of make the one that goes across here. And then you have the same thing that they have at the store. Okay, so these are just a little cheaper, and I can use them for studies. These are a little pricier, but you add the gesso on top. So you can see here I've added the gesso. That's why this is not white, because there is no gesso. Okay. I'm gonna move that to the side. Compositionally, so you saw when I was talking about that those gourds on the windowsill. So I have the 3 gourds here. I've given an angle to the windowsill. This is where you're gonna see the outside. I'm using the shadow to crop the lower edge, but I'm not taking anything off the bottom. Compositionally, that's better. But I did kind of crop here, you know, the right side of the wall, windowsill. Again, I usually don't draw things in pencil on the canvas. I use a paintbrush, but this is a good way. I just wanted to kind of show you how I laid this out. Again, this is the photo. I might have taken this at a different time, but you can see in the black and white that this is all kind of grouped together as a dark value. The shadows are a little lighter. I did have an umbrella out here when I took this photo, but I'm gonna forget about that and see the real light area here. I'm gonna actually use that to just kind of create some ambiance in the back, okay? We go over to the colored photo, or the color photo. We can see it's predominantly oranges and greens, and then these kinds of neutral whites here. Again, this can be kind of interpreted. So when I'm looking at this, I want to talk about color structure for a second. So if I go kind of blue-green back here, okay, in the light or a little bit of yellow, then I want kind of a warmish red-orange all through here, layering with a warm yellow, layering with a warm green as well, okay? So I'm not gonna paint immediately what I see directly on these gourds. I'm actually just gonna kind of build. Again, this is direct painting, so I'm not using an underpainting, but I'm not using local color at first, so I hope that makes sense. So although this is orange, that's not exactly what I'm gonna paint right at the beginning. I'm gonna kind of build it slightly, and you'll see in my time lapse what I do there. Okay, part of that is just so I can group. Basically, I want these colors to be close here so that I can kind of build on top of that, okay? Again, yes, this is kind of a yellowish color. I'm gonna kind of go for that, but I'm looking for things that are similar before I see what's different. The other thing, so the shadows are a little darker here. I'm gonna lean them kind of greenish, okay? We'll do some greenish into the shadow and then pinkish onto the windowsill. I hope you can kind of see that in the photo. When I'm looking at it right now, it's kind of later in the day, there is like a greenish light here, but again, to contrast, the opposite of green is red, right, or pink. So I'm gonna do that a little bit in the white so that I can have some contrast, probably just a bit of a greenish mix here. Again, out here, we can go with some cool greens and yellows, the outside light, maybe a little pink as well. But the main thing is to have these warmer on the inside, let's say, or darker, okay? And then if I'm gonna go warmer and darker here, then I need to go a little bit cooler out there and definitely lighter. Okay, the next thing that I'm gonna talk about is what paint do I have? Well, I have titanium white, I have yellow ochre, cadmium orange, Venetian red. Again, I'm gonna use that as a base. Phthalo greenish yellowish, phthalo green. These can be mixed together to make kind of these grayish warm reds for the interiors here. I also have some black, I have some permanent lemon. This is a light, more of a cool yellow, so I can use these two on the outside to create that light ambient light. So what I'm gonna do, you're gonna see in the time lapse, I'm first gonna work on these to kind of get my value the way that I want it, probably a little darker than I see it. And then I'm gonna go ahead and kind of jump to here. I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3, okay? Just to make sure that I've got my transitions okay. Again, I'm not solely going off of the photo. I do have the gourd sitting in the room. I'm gonna kind of enhance the values as I go. I have just my portable kind of oil paper, oil palette out. I have a range of small brushes, larger brushes. I'll get my painting rigs as well. And then for medium, I'm gonna use solvent free gel today, okay? So that's enough to just get my paint going. Again, it's direct painting, so I don't have to worry about thinning it down that much. I'm just gonna go ahead and start blopping it on there. Okay, time lapse is next. Okay, and that is it for now. That would be a first pass. So you can see I've taken some liberties definitely outside of what this photo is doing, okay? But you can see in my painting in this first pass, just direct painting, how I have a lot more light going on. This is kind of, it's hard to tell a little bit here, whereas here, there's kind of this little glow, like a glow coming from the exterior window, hitting the wall. That dark, I increased the windowsill, or like the window pane, I guess you'd say. I increased the edge of that so that I could get some contrast, and then this sparkling light coming in, the darkness or the shadow around the gourds themselves, and then the shadow being cast here. So I've taken liberties with some value and some color so that you get this nice ambient light. That's kind of the beauty of the painting. Again, as you can see, I predominantly relied on the Venetian red and the phthalo green in the darks to kind of create that base. I put some cadmium orange in because that's the local color here of the gourds, and some yellow ochre as well, kind of these earth tones, oranges and reds, with green being the shadow, as you can see here. A little bit of that phthalo green and white here, phthalo green and Venetian red to make the dark color here, but then this phthalo green with a yellow look. It's kind of bright, really emeraldy, with a lot of white for the light outside. Okay, so this is much cooler, where this is warmer because of the Venetian red. kind of getting that sense. That's what's giving you the sense of depth, glow, overall ambient color within the piece, right? Your goal is not the photo. Your goal is to have color and painting and to really create a sense of space through color here that you can't really do with photography. One of the things, what was I doing with the palette knife? Well, a lot of times I just kind of put the paint down. I'm actually doing that right now just to cover a mistake here. So I'm just kind of covering, and a lot of times I just put it on with the palette knife and then just move it in with the brush. So I'll do it something like that, but it does kind of help build paint. That's really nice. As you can see with the panel, it's very smooth. It allows me to kind of wipe into the surface. You get this glassy surface. I can also scrape in with the palette knife and really make clean edges if I want to. I was kind of being real painterly or messy with this one, but you can also get a really crisp edge with the panel because it is so smooth. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know if you have any questions. You can always comment on YouTube. For those of you who are in Canvas, you can comment there as well. And happy painting.